Watkins from Financial Juneteenth. And normally I don't do this many videos in one day, but I was literally about to lie down and take a break. So that's why you see my bed behind me. But I just had to talk to you for a second about something that was on my mind that I'm hoping can be helpful to somebody who's watching. I just read this story about a brother by the name of Alfred Postell. Alfred is a diagnosed schizophrenic. He's homeless, and he got arrested for some kind of petty crime. And when he showed up, the judge that was on his case recognized him. And when they did further investigation, it turns out that Mr. Postel was a graduate of Harvard Law School from 1979. And so I was intrigued by that for a lot of reasons, for the same reason anybody would be. And I started reading in detail about his. I said, so what's his story? How did this happen? And so what I picked up was this. The thing that really stood out to me about his story was what Postel seemed to reflect on. You see, when people go through tragic experiences, it can disrupt their brain chemistry. It can cause them to kind of lose a lot of their faculties. And one of the things that I noticed about Postel's background is that he had a a position with a prestigious law firm. He was the only black lawyer in the firm, and that opportunity was taken away from him for some reason. He didn't get the promotion he deserved, or that he thought he deserved, and he ended up leaving or being pushed out of the firm. And he talked about losing that. He talked about what it's like to have the prestige and what it's like to lose it. I think there's also a mention in there about him having been in a deep relationship with a woman and the relationship coming to an end. Those are two things that I've noticed that can cause a person to lose their mind. I've seen that in many cases. I've seen where the loss of an important love, the loss of your family, or something like that can cause a man to lose it. I've also seen situations where people have been so deeply invested in some sort of prestige, whether it's artificial or not, that when they lose that prestige, they lose a piece of themselves. I think about, for example, Melvin Turpin, who played for the University of Kentucky, who went through what a lot of great athletes go through. He was the man at Kentucky. He went to the NBA. Things didn't work out. He was working as a security guard, and he ultimately committed suicide. And he's not the only one. It happens all the time to a lot of people. Now, I'm going to get black with you for a minute and talk to you about just my perception on this as a black man. I was a black man long before I became a college professor. One of the things that I've observed is that black people depend heavily on on economic security provided by whites and validation and prestige provided by whites. Whites give us things that we feel that we need in order to be important, in order to feel like we've accomplished something, in order to feel like we are validated and human and meaningful in this world. That is a very dangerous place to be when you are dependent upon those who oppress you to get what you need to feel like you are a significant human being. That's very dangerous. And I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen with college professors, for example, who will spend a lot of years getting their PhD. They'll get a job at some big white university making real good money and really feel good about themselves, really feel like they are somebody. And then when they don't get tenure or they lose their job or they don't get whatever they think they deserve, they lose it. I mean, I'm talking about literally losing it, like I'm in the insane asylum now because I can't cope because you took away a piece of who I was. Don't do that. That is a horrible and dangerous place for you to be mentally, spiritually, and otherwise. You do not want to be in a position where you are that vulnerable, where your self-esteem is so predicated upon what somebody else thinks about you that you're going to lose everything mentally, physically, and spiritually because they took away the thing that they gave you in the first place. I think about this guy I knew. I talked to him one time. There's a brother who was telling me about his experience in corporate America. and how the racism drove him crazy. Again, racism is another thing that it's scientifically proven that racism can lead to mental illness, and because racism itself is a mental illness, so sometimes you go crazy trying to deal with crazy people. Um, and one of the things his brother said to me that I never forgot. I mean, he was a little older than me, so it was like talking to an older brother, and he said that the racism on his job had him so stressed out, had him so upset, so feeling so bad about himself that his testosterone literally was zapped out of his body. I mean, he literally was down to almost no testosterone in his body, where he wasn't even a man anymore. He couldn't get out of bed. He had no ambition. He was gaining weight. His wife wasn't attracted to him. He couldn't even get it up in the bedroom because this job was eating away at his manhood, literally. And he said two things that were really interesting to me and really made me think. As you can imagine, I think about everything. I'm always processing stuff. And I'm listening to this brother talk, and I remember thinking, something's still not quite right. I mean, he's talking very fast, and he's talking incessantly, and sometimes he rambles a little bit. I said, I remember thinking something about his spirit is not quite balanced yet, even though he's talking about this in past tense. And one of the things he said to me was really interesting. Was one, he said that when he got laid off from his job, that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to him. That he was a better, happier person because he didn't have a job anymore, which is interesting. I've seen that happen a lot too. And another thing he did was he showed me this big box of pills that he has to take every day just to keep his body chemistry balanced, just to make himself healthy. And for him, I think he felt like he was healthy now, like he was good, like he was better. But I'm sitting there thinking, brother, if you had to take 10 pills a day to be a balanced human being, I don't know if that's good for you. I don't know if it's worth it. And he was successful. He was educated. He worked at a bank. He had these important, prestigious jobs with these big white corporations that make us feel like we're important people. And all I'm gonna say to you is this: look, I'm not shaming people who have those positions or who do well at that or who like that kind of stuff. But I am saying to you that it's okay to listen to yourself, to listen to the reaction that you have instinctually to the abuse that you might have to endure, to not feel that you have to sort of pretend like it's not there as a simple coping mechanism. I think it's also okay to value your well-being over that little paycheck or that little bit of artificial prestige that somebody gave you because you work for Microsoft or because you work for Facebook or Walmart or some corporation that makes you feel important. You are somebody, even if that big white company doesn't want you. You are somebody. If you care about your community and you are a hardworking person and you are a good person and you are working to be educated, you are somebody. You are important. And I think that's important for us to understand because let's be real, we live in a country where white folks got all the money, and they're able to use that money to control our every move. There's an implicit threat over our heads that if we get out of line or we talk too much or we mess up or we get too radical, that we're gonna get punished. How do they punish you? They do two things: they take away your money and take away your prestige, which ultimately takes away your financial security, which can also take away your emotional security if you're dependent upon these artificial manifestations of prestige for your self-esteem. And so as a result, you end up being controlled. You end up becoming a puppet. You end up being on a plantation. You end up being a slave. I say free yourself from that. So that's one of the reasons why I created the Black Wealth Boot Camp, is because I'm simply sharing in a more detailed, broader extent what my journey was. I was in that matrix. I was the top of my class, and I was the only black person in the country to get a PhD in finance in 2002. I mean, that ain't easy. I mean, when you apply into programs where they take 400 applicants and accept 8 people, you have to work hard for that. So I was deeply invested in this, working very, very hard. And because I was one of those few people that jumped the hurdle, there were a lot of rewards, a lot of financial rewards, a lot of prestige rewards. And a lot of this came with the implicit understanding that I would, quote unquote, be a good boy, that I would behave, that I wouldn't get too black or deviate too much from the norms of the environment of all the white people that were around me. I was the only black person in most of the rooms that I was in. And what happened to me, and this is why I think this is why I can relate so much to what this brother went through, is because I'm sitting there, I think, man, that was almost me. My turning point was twofold. One, I had a relationship that ended that was pretty deep. I really loved this woman, and I mean, my heart just got crushed and stomped and sliced into little pieces and left on the street to just decay and get infected by the bacteria on the ground. I mean, that's how horrible it was. And so you're dealing with that, and then on top of that, professionally, things weren't going right. I wasn't. I'd been identified as a bad Negro. I was getting in trouble, and it wasn't that I lost it. It was more so that I felt like I was getting close to losing. I felt like I felt I was in pain. I mean, I was upset because everything I had worked for was in jeopardy. There are two things that tend to matter the most to men, and this is relationships and their professional situation. I think for women, same thing. Their relationships matter to them a lot. Financial security is important to women as well, on average. And so I think when you lose that much at one time, or that much is at risk at one time, it makes you feel like, man, I'm losing everything. And that's when I really started digging to the core of my soul. And that's when I realized many of the things that I share with you today. I realized I figured some of these things out when I was 28 years old, and that literally, that dark, deep, difficult time was literally when the man that you're talking to right now, that you're listening to right now, that's when he was born. Because before that, I was being taken care of by the white man. I mean, I was on my way to being a professor at an Ivy League university, and having all these rewards and accolades that come with kind of leaving your community behind, leaving your blackness behind, and kind of muting your blackness in order to make people feel comfortable in these structurally racist environments. And what I just realized, and this is what I'm just out sharing with you, and this is why I created that boot camp. Um, you don't have to do that. You don't have to bow to that. You really don't have to. And I think that for our community, we have to plant those seeds right now, so that our children don't even feel like that has to be their only choice. And I think that's it, because when I look at what this brother went through, and I'm reading his story, and I'm like, oh my God, I understand him. I was kind of like him, and when I read this brother's story, it reminds me of how racism can cause you to go crazy if you let it. If you don't know who you are. In fact, I have another friend like that. He always shied away from his blackness. He didn't want to. He always thought I was too radical, and didn't want to be like people like me. And he was in a white fraternity, had mostly white friends, dated white women, and eventually he lost it. I mean, he got hooked on drugs. When his marriage fell apart, he just literally would sleep in the basement, in the dark basement, and get high all day. He lost his career, lost his job, dropped out of school, all that stuff. And I really believe that the core of all of that is coming back to knowing who you are. Because if you know who you are and you feel good about who you are, then people can take things away from you and you can be okay. You might not be happy about it, but because the white man pays good, those jobs pay good. We know that, right? I mean, that's why we take them. That's why we're so happy to give them. That's why we are taught. We teach our kids, unfortunately, to work hard, go to school, so you can get it. Be well behaved and get a good job working for a white person. That's the traditional model, and that model needs to stop. That model needs to end right now. It doesn't mean that you have to convert your whole life right now, right away, right this second. I mean, it's a transition process. But that psychological, spiritual decision to embrace a new set of cultural norms and values can be instantaneous. So, as I read this brother's story, I just want to encourage you: don't let the racism drive you crazy. You don't let the racism zap your manhood or your womanhood. Don't let those racist environments define who you are. You are somebody, whether or not that white man gives you that job. And this ain't nothing against white people. This has nothing to do with disliking white folks. This is about loving black people. And unfortunately, we live in a society that is so screwed up, so backwards, that people think that if you love black people, you must hate white people. That's not the case. We know that's not true. And I refuse to accept that. But that's all I just want to say to you. I just had to share this. I was literally about to take my afternoon nap. In case you want to know, that's another one of the benefits of running your own business and working for yourself, is that when you get sleepy, you can take a nap. It's supposed to be that way. In other countries, they let their employees take naps. In the United States, we're one of the few countries that expects people to work from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night and not get a break. So next time you're at your corporate job and you're sleepy as hell and you want to just lay on the floor and go to sleep, understand that it's not supposed to be this way. The racism is not supposed to be this way. The fatigue not supposed to be this way. All the stress not supposed to be this way. There is a better life. There is a better way if you go look for it. That's all I want to say. By the way, if you want to check out the boot camp, you can go to theblackwealthbootcamp.com. That's theblackwealthbootcamp.com. We have discounts for people if you want to sign up right away. So that's about it. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Financial Juneteenth. I'm going to sleep. Talk to you soon. Peace.